Casual players are a very big portion of any game, yet also some of the quietest. There's then a much more vocal portion, these people being competitive or tryhards. Should a game try to satisfy a portion of the player base that isn't the target audience? How far should updates go to making everyone happy? Can you make everyone happy? What even is a casual player? Well, I mean, you clicked on this video. Let's hopefully answer all of these. I have a list of games where I'll compare tryhard and casual players. Don't think only that is what matters though. The design of the game also matters because the target audience for each game varies heavily. A game like Counter-Strike will prioritize the competitive side of players because it's a multiplayer FPS, proven by the history of championships sponsored by Valve, the creators of the series. Then there's an in-the-middle game like Death, a game that has the natural competitive nature of asymmetrical horror being balanced out with the randomness of picking your abilities. Lastly, there's purely casual games, like Among Us. It fully prioritizes casual players thanks to the easy-to-learn design and mobile players. All of these games are multiplayer games, yet they're designed differently, having a specific target audience. Sorry for that short lesson, let's start with the first game.
Death.
For our first game, I think it's best we cover an in-the-middle game. Before that, though, what even is a casual player? Honestly, there's no proper term for a casual player. They may be known as a player who plays once per week, a player who only plays with friends, a player who tries, but isn't trying to master every single thing, a player who's simply trying to have fun. Casual player is a very broad label. I don't believe it's only tied to skill. It's more so of the way you behave. Humans act very differently, which is why it's a broad label. Anyways, on to Death. Death is an asymmetrical horror game on Roblox. The game is inspired by other ASYM games on Roblox, like Forsaken. This ends up making it a timer-based ASYM game, where once the clock runs down, the survivors win. This small design feature is already something that moves Death slightly out of the competitive side of ASYM games, since Dead by Daylight, the most popular non-Roblox ASYM game, is heavily competitive thanks to the requirement of completing generators with your team. But that isn't the main thing that makes Death very casual friendly, it's actually the way you choose survivors. Most games allow you to pick a survivor with a designated kit. This indirectly causes for players to make optimal teams and master their kits consistently. Death doesn't allow this because instead of choosing your survivor, you get to pick a randomized set of abilities from 3 cards at the start of a round. This adds an element of RNG as the core gameplay of the game. While it doesn't fully stop optimizing, it does make players adapt. You need to think which of the 3 cards would best help everyone. But it does make mastering abilities less consistent. However, this doesn't mean Death is for casuals only. ASYM games will always have a portion of competitive gameplay. There are 2 teams, and both have different objectives. The player agency also naturally allows for a game to be competitive, thanks to the consequences of messing up an ability. So now you know what the game is designed like, and which category it's put into, in the middle. But what about the players? The built-in randomness as part of the core gameplay loop actually helps out casual players, for reasons I already stated. There's no consistent way of mastering a specific ability. The game might even, in a way, encourage you to try something you haven't before because your favorite set of abilities will never be guaranteed to appear. The players who have been playing the game for longer will obviously understand the most optimal way to play each ability individually, but casuals aren't handicapped or even treated poorly by the players who have been around for a long time. The game isn't forcing you to stick to a niche, other players aren't forcing you to stick to a niche. You actually have some agency without needing to rebel or just do it for fun. The maps also allow anyone to have fun too because it's a 3D environment. You can go anywhere and watch from a distance and help your team once your cooldowns are up. So, does Death have room for casual players? Absolutely. They're a huge part of the target audience. But this doesn't mean this is a casual only game. This is still an asymmetrical horror game. There's still 2 teams with different objectives. The killers, just like in any other ASYM game, have different kits that aren't randomized. The civilians with randomized abilities is the casual side of Death, while killers are there for the competitive players who want to master certain killers and their kits. There's nothing wrong with this though. This is a tried and true system that doesn't need changing, proven by the fact that no other ASYM games, including Death that loves to experiment with existing systems, have tried to change the way this works. This is more like making room for players who care about mastering optimizing kits. Want an example? Let's look at Killjoy. One of his abilities is to deploy a killbot in Killjoy's current standing location. The killbot will stay in that area, never moving. Whenever a survivor, or well, civilians as Death calls them, Get within a certain range of the killbot, it will shoot rockets at them. This ability helps Killjoy with their sonar playstyle. This playstyle is a great example of optimizing something. If you know the best spots to set up traps in a map, then you will always know those spots unless the map gets reworked or changed. This is even more true with Artful, an actual trapper killer. But there's something that I would say is a concern. Killers can be pushed back by the randomness of civilian abilities. Killers won't know what they're getting into when a round starts. It can be a round full of civilians with damage dealing abilities. These rounds let the civilians easily destroy Artful's walls or Killjoy's killbots. In other rounds, it can be a bunch of caretakers that constantly heal anyone who has any amount of chip damage. If you're not really sure what I'm getting at here, it basically means that the inconsistent parts of the game clashes with the consistent parts of the game. This can end up making balancing harder for the developer team, since there's two different design goals and it's harder to try and make them coexist with each other. Killers are able to be adjusted to, civilians are meant to be adapted to. Those are just completely different philosophies. This is an issue because I think Death is trying to make both sides happy. I have a great example for this, Last Man Standing, or LMS for short. LMS happens when only one civilian is left. The round's timer is set to 1 minute and 15 seconds, and the civilian gains 6 HP. LMS is easily the most competitive aspect of the core gameplay loop. It's essentially a 1v1 where the civilian has no team to fall back on. But at the same time, it might not even matter whether they can fall back on a team or not. The layout of the current map, the set of abilities the civilian has, and the amount of HP the civilian has, can be a pretty huge make or break for whether or not a killer wins LMS. I believe there are multiple reasons why LMS can make neither casuals or competitive players happy. The amount of variables that can change will make every LMS different. Remember when I said that consistent and inconsistent design can clash? This is a great example of when this happens. It's what I said earlier. You literally have the consistency, killer, against the inconsistencies. Civilian abilities, chosen map, civilian HP, player skill. These things can make an LMS end instantly with the civilian dying. This can make the civilian player feel like they don't really stand a chance. In other cases, the LMS can end up with the civilian living in it. This can make the killer player feel punished despite them killing a full team of civilians. That being said, I think Death does its best at trying to make both competitive and casual players happy. Of course, there's still things to critique like LMS and special game modes? Listen, I'd like to talk about the special game modes and the natural competitive nature of those, like Fry Bomber just being tag or Die Nation being a killer battle royale. But I think it's time to switch to the next game. Before that, you should comment your thoughts on the special game modes Death has. There's probably a lot to be said, so why not try and fill in the gaps yourself? It would be fun to read all of your comments on the subject, so yeah. Anyways...
Among Us.
Oh hell no, Among Us in 2026? Haha, who's still playing that crap? In all seriousness, Among Us is a social deduction game. Players play as crewmates, with 1, or 2, or 3 of them being imposters. Crewmates do tasks to move the taskbar forward and potentially win by completing them. But they can also call meetings where they can vote someone they suspect of being the imposter. The imposters fake tasks and try to get by and kill the crewmates without getting caught. Sounds very simple, huh? Well, because it's just that. It's simple. It's very casual friendly. That's why it's the casual game of this video. So what makes Among Us so good for casual players? It's just that it's not a very serious game. While you can master things, it's clearly not what the game is designed around. Not because necessarily getting a role is RNG, but because that's not what Among Us is about. Think about the 2020 popularity spike. It got so popular because it was basically funny moments or intense moments in such a simple looking game. I'll speak from personal experience. There's been multiple times an imposter accidentally phantom in front of me. For anybody who hasn't been up to date on Among Us, phantoms can disappear with a visual puff of smoke around them. They can also reappear with the same smoke. Anyways, when I see this happen, I'm screaming, running to the emergency meeting button to either make it and call them out, or die in the process of trying to call the meeting. That's a funny, intense moment. It's what makes Among Us memorable. What about being punished for losing? There's actually no harsh punishment system. You could accuse anyone and get them voted out. If you were wrong, you'd likely look suspicious, but in most lobbies, you wouldn't immediately be called out for it. Even if you are, then as a ghost you can continue doing tasks and watching imposters do dumb moves or sneakily getting by. If you fake a task badly, you might be called out for it and voted out, but the game continues. You're still a ghost and you can watch your imposter mates clutch the game for you. There's no punishment, you don't lose your currency, and there's no progress to lose either. Anyways, I kind of skimmed past it, but that's the true goal of Among Us. The game's design philosophy is to be memorable. It's a simple, easy to learn game with funny or dumb moments. I mean hell, public lobbies are known to be some of the dumbest lobbies you'd see in your life. So does Among Us have room for casuals? Obviously, it's made for them. What about competitive players? Well, they aren't fully left out. Not because Among Us has some FPS game mode or something, but because player skill can still be involved. You can improve at lying, you can improve at knowing when the right moment of killing someone. You can improve when the perfect time is to get an alibi that trusts you. Among Us more so makes room for competitive rather than making room for casual players, because the game is already built around casual players. But that doesn't change the design philosophy with it. It's always funny moments and memorable experiences first. Before we go to the next section, I want to say, you should subscribe. I hope you're enjoying this video so far. I'm pretty proud of it so far, and I want to know your thoughts. Like the video if you agree with me or now have a better understanding of certain things.
Competitive game?
Well, I've heard some critiques in my comment section of my "Good Games Teach You Without Explaining" video. I shouldn't cover a subject I'm not too knowledgeable in. I don't play competitive games because I'm not a competitive player. I haven't even played Counter-Strike except for a singular CSGO round back when that game was alive. So guess we're going to end the... Oh, no.
Clash Royale.
Fuck! I said I'd never touch this game again! Well, I don't have a choice, do I? Clash Royale is a real-time strategy mobile game. I know, a mobile game. It's a 1v1 game where you must defend your towers as well as attacking the other towers. For every tower taken down, 1 crown is lost or gained. Unless you take the king tower, then in that case, all towers are taken down and you earn 3 crowns. The player with the most crowns wins. There are multiple cards to unlock with differently designed troops, spells, and buildings. You place down these cards using the in-round currency, Elixir. Each card costs different amount of Elixir. I skimmed over it, so let's talk about the different classes. Troops are cards that actually move and target something. Targets can vary, from being other troops, air troops, or buildings. These are basically to make pushes, defend, or go all out. Pushes can naturally happen just by defending, so this is an essential part of the strategizing. Spells are cards that are a one-time use, meaning it won't retarget or be able to switch from the spot you put it in, and is usually to get some easy value. Value being something like a 4 elixir spell nearly killing a 9 elixir card. Value can also usually just come from a troop, since they can move and actually retarget, so if they live, they're still in the arena. Buildings are cards that sit still but fire projectiles or spawn troops. These are useful in pulling away cards that only target buildings, so they don't go to your tower. Every troop targets buildings though, so it isn't targeted building only troops. Also, every card is placed on tiles. They're not big chessboard tiles, they're like small tiles spread everywhere in the arena. The last major aspect of the gameplay design I need to talk about are decks. You aren't going to be given access to all of your cards. You have to make a deck of 8 cards. In a round, you will have 4 cards to choose from. This is the only element of randomness the whole game has. From your deck, 4 random cards will be a part of your choosing deck. The other 4 cards will be a part of a queue, so whenever you place down one of your cards, the card in queue will be put into your choosing deck. This is likely to limit the player and allow for more strategizing and optimizing when it comes to decks. Yes, that's correct. You're already hearing the keywords of a competitive game. Let's just start talking about this, yeah? Also, to prevent over-explaining, this section already has the longest explanation out of the 2 other games, and for the sake of being able to keep track, I will be only talking about Trophy Road, usually referred to as Ladder. This is the main way of progressing the game has. If it wasn't blatantly obvious, this game does require skill. Decks are revolved around optimizing and understanding the specific scenarios your cards may get into. However, the best space for casuals is the very start. There's less cards you have to your disposal, so obviously it's less of a headache to understanding what each one does. Plus, even when you reach a new arena and unlock new cards, you don't unlock them fully, you're just able to obtain them, it doesn't mean you did obtain them. Plus, there's potential you play against bots instead of real humans, albeit it's not very often. You can also replay battles against a bot that uses the same deck of the player you lost against. The tutorial itself is very good at explaining ways to strategize. It shows tactics like putting archers behind a giant to use the giant as a tank. But there's true ways to test how casual friendly a game is. Let's talk about experimenting. Experimenting is actually really easy to understand in Clash Royale. To understand it, you first need to understand upgrading cards. Usually, it requires gold and enough of that card to level it up. For example, if you want to upgrade arrows from level 5 to level 6, you need 50 arrows cards and 400 gold. While gold may be something to get over time, getting more cards for a singular card is incredibly grindy. This essentially means that when you get into the late ladder, you need to commit to a deck. Hell, the mid ladder is when you need to actually start committing to a deck. This means early ladder is the only real room for experimenting you're gonna have. You can also just use money to get the necessary cards and gold. This is a mobile game. I also need to mention the punishments. If you've ever been in my shoes, there's moments where you're about to leave the arena, then you lose a couple games in a row, and you're all the way back down. The punishments can be light, but they can also be heavy, and trust me, it can absolutely feel bad. What about adapting? Well, of course there's a ton of that. You'd never know what your opponent is going to have unless you're in rank to ladder. Then of course you'll know they're going to use a meta deck. Adapting is an essential part of the game since you need to have strategies for what the opponent will throw at you. Whether that's a golem at the bridge or musketeer behind the princess tower, it doesn't really matter. However, there's also a lot to memorize. Things like when it's right to place a troop at the bridge, which tiles to exactly place a building to drag troops away, or which spell to use on which troop. There's a lot you need to recall. I'm honestly done talking about this game, so what's my final verdict? If you couldn't gather what kind of game this is from everything I described, it's very casual, unfriendly. It's a heavily competitive game, and there's just so much you need to handle. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Not every game needs a casual player base. Every game needs to understand what their target audience is though. Clash Royale knows their target audience are competitive. They host official Supercell championships annually. I even mentioned it earlier, they have rank to ladder. That's just ladder but even more competitive. So take with that what you will. Die of Death, Among Us, Clash Royale. They all manage to do one thing, and that's understand what their player bases are for. So should games have room for casual players? It all depends on the design philosophy. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's more than 3 games out there, so look into your favorite games and see what kind of goals the game encourages. See what kind of people are playing the game and what the most agreed upon critiques are. This helps you see the kind of audience the game has, unless you try and read the direction the game will take or what kind of suggestions you can give. Anyways, subscribe like how Pursuer is doing, and like the video if it helps you understand the design philosophies of games and the target audience of said games. Hype the video if you're on mobile. Thank you.